Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome to MST.TV. This is Nishi here bringing you guys another Market Watch episode. Now it has been a little while since we've done one of these, I think largely because everyone's eagerly waiting for that ban list to drop. But my understanding is that the list isn't going to be dropping until next Monday. So that's probably going to be taking up a lot of our conversations for next week. But for now, there are a few things that I want to touch base with you all on with regards to the current state of the market. So we have the Legendary Duelists Magic Kill Heroes set coming out this weekend, and I wanted to have a quick discussion about the prices of some of the more hyped up cards from that set. There are some OCG meta trends that we should be taking note of as well, as a lot of the time, meta trends and card choices there carry over to the TCG as well. And finally, we now have a bunch of information about the new set's Eternity Code and Secret Slayers, specifically the unveiling of a bunch of new cards like the Orcas monster, as well as the entire Adamassia archetype, which are causing a few rumblings in the market here as well. Let's get started. Alright, so first up, let's take a look at the short printed cards from Legendary Duelists Magical Heroes. First up, we have the big one, Magician's Souls. So this is probably the most hyped up card in the set, as not only does it have the potential to take Dark Magician to the next level, it is also a really big boost to the Spiral archetype, as it can dump Master Plan to the graveyard to be summoned back and then linked off. Now, a lot of people remember Spiral probably from their days of extra linking, as they were one of the craziest decks of the Link era. However, the deck now has Spiral Resort, Spiral Drones, and Spiral Quick Fix at 1, so the deck isn't nearly as potent as it used to be. So the card currently has a $95 price tag as the most hyped up card of the set, but I think the question you have to ask yourself here is whether or not it's going to maintain that price tag moving forward, and I think that largely depends on how you think Spiral is going to perform. I think that right now people can safely assume that Dark Magician, while it is a lot stronger now, isn't going to be a tier 1 or even tier 2 deck with the new support. Therefore, it's up to Spirals to carry the demand for this card. If Spirals really do become a strong top contending deck, then I can definitely see this card maintaining its price tag, because people are going to need to have multiple copies in order to play it. However, if Spiral continues to just be like an average tier 2 deck that barely manages to top the occasional regional or YCS, then I don't think that the resulting demand is going to justify its price tag, and that its price is therefore going to drop. Now, in my personal opinion, I don't think that either Dark Magician or Spirals are going to be the next meta deck, and so I'm expecting the price here to drop considerably, probably around to that $60 to $70 price range. As a short print that is still going to see a moderate amount of demand, it isn't going to be as cheap as like a $20, $30, $40 card, but I definitely don't think that it should be sitting at such a monstrous price tag. Alright guys, next up we have the Dark Magicians, which is the Dark Magician Fusion monster. At the moment, the card is only around $20 on TCG Player for a single copy, which is honestly pretty reasonable in my opinion. This card is actually short printed in the set as well, so it's about as hard to pull as Magician's Souls is. However, the card is definitely something that can only be played in Dark Magician decks, right? We're not going to see it splashed in Spiral or any other sort of meta deck, which is definitely a big part of why the price tag isn't very high at the moment. Now, admittedly, it is extremely good in the deck. It helps the deck to generate card advantage, as well as helps you to maintain board presence if your opponent blows up your board or destroys Eternal Soul. For what it is, I actually think that at $20, the card is worth picking up. As a short print, it's one of those cards that is actually quite likely to steadily increase in price over time, especially if we don't see a reprint for like 3 to 4 years. And given how the Dark Magician is one of the most iconic cards in Yu-Gi-Oh history, there's almost certainly going to be a demand for it at some point in the future. Okay, so on to the last short printed card, and it's a hero monster. We have Elemental Hero Liquid Soldier. So currently, the card is sitting at around $60 on TCG Player, which, to be completely honest, is a lot cheaper than what I was expecting. I see a lot of people talking or commenting on how Liquid Soldier should only be like a $20 card, but I don't think that that was ever a realistic prediction to make, given the short printing trends we've seen in the TCG the last couple of years. If we look at cards like Malicious Bane and Adusted Gold, each of which were sitting at like $80 for the longest time, and they were only played at 1, right? Whereas with Liquid Soldier, it's a card that hero decks are probably going to want to play 2 to 3 copies of, so I was actually expecting it to be closer to $100. Now, that being said, I think that if you are a hero player, you should probably grab this card sooner rather than later, I think that one of the reasons that this card is fairly cheap at the moment is that people are waiting to see how the ban list plays out. Although unlikely, it's certainly possible that we could see some sort of hero hit on the upcoming ban list, which could affect the viability of the deck moving forward. However, I think that that is very unlikely and that the deck is going to come out as one of the top decks of the next format, and therefore people are going to want to start picking up the deck, and then we're going to see a lot of hero prices overall start to spike up. So yeah, while $60 does seem like a bit of a hefty price tag now, if you can grab them for $50 to $60 while the set is still new and people are still a bit apprehensive about the ban list, and you want to look into playing that hero deck, I would definitely consider grabbing them now rather than later. Alright guys, one other card from the Magical Hero set that I want to talk about briefly is Elemental Hero Sunriser. So this card is another one of the more highly anticipated hero cards from the set, as it searches for Miracle Fusion and can help break apart boards during the battle phase quite well. Now over the last month or so, we have seen quite a few people talking about how it was definitely going to be short printed and that its price tag would be comparable to that of Malicious Bane. However, according to the pull ratios that John from House of Champs showed in his breakdown, Sunriser isn't actually one of the short printed cards in the set. As a result, we're currently seeing its market price at only around $40. In fact, you can actually grab them for only $35 a piece over on Troll and Toad as well. However, because this card isn't a short print, I actually think that this is a little bit too high of a price to pay for this card right now. I'm expecting this to be one of the more heavily open Legendary Duelist sets because people are going to be looking for those Magician Souls and Liquid Soldiers. Because of this, I'd expect all of the cards that aren't short printed to tank a fair bit in terms of price, since there's going to be even more of them than usual floating around on the market. Now, since it is only a one of, don't feel too bad if you do want to play the deck and picked it up for around like 35 to 40. However, if you don't need the card immediately, I'd recommend waiting a bit for the card to drop to between $20 to $25 before grabbing it. Okay guys, so one of the most hyped up cards that we're getting in Eternity Code, the next set after Ignition Assault, is Mech Knight Orcas Girsu, which is a really crazy good card for the Orcas and Mech Knight archetype, as well as just being like an overall good card in the set. It literally sets up like the entire Orcas combo by itself, so depending on how hard they hit Orcas on the upcoming ban list, the deck could still be a very strong contender in a few months. Now because of this, one of the cards that has been drawing the attention of a few people is Mech Knight of Morning Star, a Link 2 from Cybernetic Horizon that was never actually reprinted in this year's Megatons. It's a Link 2 that can basically be made with just Mech Knight Orcas Girsu, and it allows you to search for a World Legacy card from your deck by discarding a Mech Knight or World Legacy card. Really cool card that can be used to grab an important extender like Succession or Monstrosity. Because this card hasn't been reprinted, if it does start to see play at all, expect the price to jump up to around $20, much like the way that we saw Orchestrated Return do. I think that regardless of how this deck gets hit on the ban list, the Orcas Girsu card that we're getting is just so strong that the deck is probably going to be at least tier 1.5 to tier 2 status, and because of that, I would definitely recommend grabbing this card if you can for around the $3 to $5 price range. I'm expecting this card to go up in price as soon as Eternity Code drops, so be sure to try to grab your cheap copies now. Another hyped up Mech Knight card is Mech Knight Purple Nightfall, something that really is no stranger to all of this attention from the market. As one of the main Mech Knight cards, it can be special summoned to any zone with 2 cards in the same column, and then you can banish it to search for a Mech Knight monster. This card is important because you can search Orcas Girsu with it without burning your normal summon. It is a bit trickier to bring this card out because you need the 2 cards in the same column, but in the right situation, it is a very important starter. Also, the Mech Knight engine itself is just like a very easy to abuse engine if someone isn't playing around it. So before, we actually saw this card tank a little bit in terms of price, and it was sitting at around like $5 to $6 for the longest time, but it has steadily increased in price over the last little while, and right now we're looking at around a $9 price tag for either the original print or the Megaton reprint. To be honest, I don't really see this card being reprinted anytime soon. Its Megaton reprint was just over a year ago, but it's not really like a big blip on Konami's radar, so I don't see them including it in any of the reprint sets that we're expecting to get this year. That being said, at only $9 a piece, I would be trying to grab playsets for between $20 to $25 if you can, and then holding on to them for now until Eternity Code drops in the TCG. Okay guys, one last World Legacy card that I want to bring to your attention, and that is World Legacy Scars. Now for some reason, someone decided to go and buy a ton of ultra rare copies of this card off TCG Player, as it was available as like a sneak peek ultra rare promo card, and now the card is like $4 on that platform. However, whoever decided to try and buy them all out did a crappy job, because you can still grab ultra rares off of Troll and Toad for literally like 50 cents a piece, and then I think the card is also available as like a common and a rare as well. I guess I can see how the card could be useful. I mean, like, discarding to draw isn't the worst thing in the world, and if I remember correctly, I think Team Samurai X1 actually used this card in a combo that he was showing off. However, I wouldn't buy into any of this hype. I think this was really poorly chosen. I definitely don't expect to be able to sell this card at this price anytime soon, but if you have your copies and for some reason you're able to move them, go ahead. Alright, so we finally have the Adamasya archetype revealed from Secret Slayers, and personally I am really excited for them. They look a lot like Sylvans, but I think they utilize the whole excavating mechanic a lot better than Sylvans ever really did, and they're synchro based, which is really cool as well. Now in their little teaser, Konami talked about how you could potentially use Gallant Granite in the deck, and strictly speaking, like, it isn't wrong. The deck does play level 4 rock monsters, and then you can therefore search anything from the deck. However, I don't actually believe that Gallant Granite is something that the deck is really going to be able to abuse. I think that because it's a synchro deck, you're typically not going to be putting out those monsters with the same level very often. Or if you do, you're going to want to use your resources that you do have available to go into a synchro play instead. Now obviously I could be wrong, and I haven't seen too much play from the archetype, but just from what I have seen and then my understanding and interpretation of the cards, I don't really think it's something that's going to be super heavily used. Anyways, when we talked about this card before and I recommended picking it up, it was only about $1, and currently it's sitting at around $4. I think it used to be a little bit higher than that actually, but the hype has kind of settled down for now. This card is definitely a sell for me unless we happen to get some sort of new Adamasya card revealed in like a core set or something like that. You can sell it now while we do have that little bit of hype with the Adamasya archetype just being revealed, or you can wait until the actual release of Secret Slayers. Personally, I would offload it now just in case they happen to include it as a reprint in the Secret Slayers set. The other rock card that I want to talk about here is Block Dragon. So this is something that we've talked about before when it was just a couple of dollars, and then again when it bumped up to around $5. Well, we saw another bit of a price bump where now it's currently sitting at around $7 for the Megaton reprint, but a whole $12 for the original print. I believe that this card is being hyped up because of both the new Adamasya cards as well as Megaliths, which are both rock archetypes that are coming to the TCG this year. To be honest, I don't know how much play this card is actually going to end up seeing. A couple of my guys at my locals are hyping this card up because they're making some sort of like crazy Megalith Monster Mash deck, but I don't think it's going to be the most competitive, and I believe the Adamasya deck actually utilizes monsters with a bunch of different attributes, so it might not be the best thing for that deck either. I think the best place for this card actually is still going to be something like Sekka's Light Burning Abyss with Gigantus or Fossil Dyna. Anyways, this is something that you should probably be digging out of your bulk binders to bring to your Ignition Assault sneak peeks for people who are going to want to build Megalith as a budget deck option, since I believe that most cards in the archetype are available in low rarities, so you should move them while they're hyped up. Alright guys, we have two final cards that I want to talk about here, and these are the results of trends that we're seeing in the OCG. So as you guys most likely know, Dragoon of Red Eyes is one heck of a card that is single-handedly taking over the OCG. It's a card that's ridiculously hard to kill, as it can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects at all, so the card can be summoned out by using Red Eyes Fusion. However, you can only play 3 copies of the actual spell card in your deck. So what the OCG is doing instead is coming up with different ways to get just 2 monsters on the board so that they can turn them into Predaplant Vert Anaconda so that you can use its effect to dump the Red Eyes Fusion and bring out Dragoon that way. Now this actually feels very similar to how Orcas just had to get any 2 monsters onto the board in order to go into Nightmare Mermaid. One of the most common ways that we saw the deck do this before was with the Trickstar engine, where they would play Light Stage and Candina, and then Korobane as their 2 monsters. Now, ever since Light Stage was limited and Mermaid was banned, we obviously haven't seen this engine abused as much, and Korobane kind of fell off the radar and dropped to being like $3 to $4. However, now with it seeing play again in the OCG, as well as the possibility of Light Stage being released on the upcoming ban list with Mermaid out of the picture, we're seeing the quantities of Korobane gradually disappear from the market, and it's now currently like a $10 card. This card is also not due to be reprinted until the 2020 Megatons, unless they decide to do it a bit early in something like Battles of Legend or Dual Overload. But yeah, this is just a price jump that I think you guys should be aware of, because recently the card has been something that's very easy to overlook. Alright guys, last card here, we're looking at Red Eyes Insight. So because of how important it is to bring out Dragoon of Red Eyes, there are a couple of OCG deck lists that I've seen that actually play Red Eyes Insight, which is a searcher for a Red Eyes spell or trap if you send a Red Eyes monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard. Now, with Red Eyes Fusion, you can't fuse from your graveyard, so you can't fuse with the Red Eyes that you send with this card. Unfortunately, that does mean that you have to play another brick in your deck in addition to just the Dark Magician and Red Eyes Black Dragon. However, I think that the idea is that Dragoon is just such a strong card that the OCG is willing to brick occasionally to bring that card out whenever possible. Anyways, Red Eyes Insight only has 1 printing ever, and that is from Invasion Vengeance, a set that by now is like a few years old. As a result, it's now like a $4 rare and is probably something that's really easy to not pay attention to in your bulk. I mean, like, I'm kind of kicking myself now because I know that I had a few copies of this card that I threw into some bulk a few months ago. But yeah, we don't know when the Dragoon card is going to be coming to the TCG, and when it does, we could very well see this card reprinted in an OTS pack or something, so it's not even something that you need to freak out about now. I would argue that it's not even that great of a card, because it does require you to play an extra brick. But I just thought that it's something that I should bring to you guys' attention in case you're able to pull them out of your own bulk, or you find them in the quarter bin at your locals and you're able to flip them quickly. Alright guys, that is it for today's video. I know that we're all really excited for that ban list to drop. I'm really hoping that we finally see some decks taken out of the meta so that we can have a new meta form. And also with every ban list, right, we get a ton of shifts and movement in the market as well. So be sure to stick around and of course hit that subscribe button, because Tombox and I will be dropping a ton of coverage when the list finally does drop. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed this video, please slam that thumbs up button for me, and as always, leave a comment down below if you have any questions about any of the things I discussed in this video, or maybe want to mention something that I missed. And yeah, as always guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.